Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
New favorite nickname for a prospect was given to me by Rowan, and it's for Cole Perfetti. He just casually referred to him as Goal Spaghetti, and I have not been able to shake that out of my head the entire time. So I can't tell if I really, really, really want Detroit to draft him now or not at all, because that will be a devastating way to think of Detroit's newest best prospect.
Yeah, you don't want that. That's all I got.
Goal Spaghetti.
I'm immediately. I was coming around on Cole Perfetti. It's over now.
It's just done. Pull the floor out from beneath you, eh?
No, yeah, I'd rather draft Sanderson now.
Well, I mean, don't let that stop you from thinking there isn't something as ridiculous for Jake Sanderson.
Honestly,
when we were looking at our prospect profile calendar that you sent us not long before, my brain just wasn't working. I have a big, smooth brain lately, and it like truncated the name, and I saw Jake Sanders. I'm like, what the hell is Jake Sanders? And I think it's just because I did a fantasy football draft. I was like, Miles Sanders, Jake Sanders. I really don't understand. It took me probably 30 seconds to put that one together.
It's not even Monday.
Is it? Oh, it's Thursday. I genuinely don't know when we start recording what day of the week it is. Like, I actually have to like check the date on my laptop to know whether this is a weekend episode on a Sunday night or if this is a Wednesday/Thursday midweek episode. It all melts together.
I just generally don't know what day it is.
Yeah,
full stop.
I was gonna say we'd be able to keep track of time just by Evan's rounds of golf, but I think you golf throughout the week and the weekend consistently.
Yes, so it's very tough.
Yeah, it's hard. You got a tough life, man.
I know. I will somehow make it through, I think.
All right. Lots on the docket today on the Winged Wheel Podcast, but welcome to the show. I am Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
Oh, and I'm Evan.
Yeah.
Getting to my bedtime again.
Yeah, so it goes. Lots to talk about in the hockey world. In terms of actual hockey content, of course, the playoffs have progressed since the last time we spoke. There has been a pretty huge trade that, depending on who you ask, is either completely lopsided or kind of fair. Robbie Fabbri extended for the Red Wings. More discussion on how that might affect other RFA deals. Red Wings overseas and Red Wings prospects or potential prospects overseas have begun to play, including Philip Zadina. But first and foremost, what we are going to be talking about is literally just hours before we started recording, the NHL's decision to postpone games that were to be set for tonight, Thursday, August 27th, and then tomorrow, Friday as well, with a presumed resumption on Saturday. So if you guys remember not too long ago when we had the discussion just around the time the NHL started to get involved with the social justice movements and everything kind of came to a head quickly with the protests around the world, really. We dedicated some time at the beginning of the show to that. And we like to acknowledge when things take a pretty stark departure from the typical hockey content. And not everyone tunes in and has just the, emotional or mental capacity to want to listen to that at that time. You might just not want to hear about it at all. I'm pretty exhausted all the time. And so, if this is something that you want to tune out of, skip ahead by all means, please do. Just a few minutes, 5-10 minutes. Hard to say as I speak how long we're going to talk about it, but just skip ahead until you start hearing hockey content. So that's your fair warning, in case this isn't your cup of tea today. Totally understand. But for those of you who want to stick around, we will dive into it. So we were just chatting about this before we started recording. It kind of feels like everything happened fast, and I haven't been on Twitter a lot over the past, weeks. And I feel like I might have missed some steps here, but it looks like everything just kind of boiled over and came to a head quickly again. this started in the NBA, and it was in response to a few different incidents around the States. And I think it was the Milwaukee Bucks first.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the timeline, roughly. Milwaukee, obviously being the closest team to the Jacob Blake incident, so obviously all eyes would be on the Bucks, fairly or unfairly. So they had their game scheduled against Orlando yesterday. Nobody knew what was happening. Orlando literally took the floor for the game. The buzzer sounded to end warm-ups and to commence everything, and the Bucks still weren't on the floor. There was a 10 to 15 minute window there of just sheer confusion online as people wondered if they were boycotting, if they were playing the game, if they weren't, if they were forfeiting, like what was happening. And actually, it's technically not a boycott, it's a strike, but whatever, semantics doesn't matter. And so then the Magic left the floor. We got word the Bucks weren't playing. Obviously, that news traveled very fast around the sports world. In the NBA, the rest of the teams and the players specifically for that night said, yeah, no, we're not going either. We stand in support of the Bucks. The Islanders and Flyers in hockey were playing. They were on the ice when this happened. So there wasn't much of anything to do with that because you're not walking off in the middle of a game. The NHL, being the NHL and being generally slow to react to everything, just went on basically business as usual, gave a bit of lip service in some pregame ceremonies, if you want to call them that, or speeches, whatever you want to call it.
Moments. We'll call them moments.
Moments, yeah, where they acknowledged it and did their whole BLM speech and yada, 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 in what felt like a typical NHL, hey, we're trying to come out on the right side here, but we don't want to be too controversial. I think 3 MLB games got canceled or got boycotted last night. The rest went off. So this morning, the NBA announced they were postponing all their games today, but they would resume the playoffs because a lot of people were legitimately wondering if the NBA was just done. They're just like, okay, we've had enough of this world. Bye. Like, you guys don't deserve to watch basketball. We'll see you later. But they determined to resume the postseason. What that looks like as of this moment, I don't think I've seen an announcement on anything, just that they will do it. The NHL and MLS in solidarity also postponed games today. Still don't have an announcement what's going on. It sounds like we probably are getting hockey back tomorrow, but again,
Saturday. They said today and tomorrow they're postponing.
Okay, Saturday. Yeah. Again, don't know what day it is. So then that's where we're at. That was kind of the timeline. So, I mean, it's real hard to judge the NHL on this one because it was fast last night, but the NBA did it and a bunch of baseball teams did it. So the NHL could have, but didn't. And this is very on brand for the NHL. They want to be on the right side of everything, but they don't want to go too far. They like walking the middle. Which I mean, most businesses do, honestly. So it's not like they're this evil empire, but not exactly what you'd like to see in a time like this.
Yeah, the NBA, the MLB, and the WNBA all, took those stances and decided to postpone games. The NHL, here's the thing, and this isn't to say that they're justified in a slow or perceivably slow response. I was blown away that they even got to the point where they had premier players Taves and Sagan saying recognizing the nuances of the movement that's happening and saying Black Lives Matter and understanding how the difficult concepts that were being put forward and challenging social norms and all of that. You don't get that from hockey players. You typically do not get that from professional hockey players and the NHL. Initially, when the NHL was one of the slower leagues to respond to this, all I could think of was, the NHL stretched itself by its own standards the last time around, and I'm kind of shocked that they're even responding at all. I was really truly fully expecting them to just play through it and just say have more pregame things.
We need to specify one thing very clearly here, though. This was not the NHL.
Oh, I'm getting to that. Yeah.
Yeah. This was the players. So whether you are for or against this movement, whatever your emotional reaction is, should be, if you're going to heap hate or praise, it's going to the players.
Yeah. At first, I feared that this was the NHL's response and it came down from the top and said, no, we messed up, and now that it was like kind of a PR safe face. But it's come out after, you know, press conferences today and the players speaking and the Hockey Diversity Alliance speaking. It was really good to see that this is a players initiative. Look, I'm not going to mince words here. I understand a lot of people don't see how postponing games solves anything. And here's what I'll say to you without getting too far into this argument. This isn't meant to fix everything now. That's not what the players or any of these leagues are pretending to do. It's a show of solidarity and it's a show of support, and it's a recognition that some issues are bigger than sports, and these things can be put on hold to push attention towards, you know, prominent issues that these players and society, and a lot of society is trying to bring to the forefront. And like Brad said, the players are the ones who drove this. The press conference that I saw today with all of those players in attendance was kind of, again, remarkable. I was not expecting to see that. Ryan Reeves, Kadri, Bellemare, Horvat, all spoke. Dickinson is the last one. Yeah. And it was good to see, like, Reeves was talking about how he didn't know what to do because he thought he might have to make a decision of whether or not he would walk out and be one of the only players or one of only a couple players, or he'd, you know, play. And that was conflicting to him. But then he woke up to texts from a lot of players from, you know, different teams and the Eastern Conference, not just Western Conference teams, wanting to know more. And it was, there was a call with like 100+ players on it, with like Dumba leading the conversation. I don't want to get too specific and name names that weren't actually involved, but this was a broad call between players in the bubble. And basically players who represented the Hockey Diversity Alliance, the newly formed group, from June, I believe it came about. They spoke and they educated, and apparently like players wanted to know more. And not just, you know, black or brown hockey players, like white hockey players wanted to know more, and they wanted to learn, and they wanted to figure out how to stand by their teammates and their peers and their rivals. And that to me is enough of a statement, no matter how you fall, where you fall on this form of protest. Like, this is the players' initiative. And I was worried at first that it wasn't, and it's good to see that it was. Hockey's going to be back in a couple days. We went months without it. We'll be fine.
And I don't see how anyone could argue that this didn't work, because as you stated right at the beginning of your spiel, there is, this isn't going to solve anything. Of course it isn't. An issue this big is going to take years, if not decades, to solve, if it ever gets solved. But the only way it gets solved is if people are talking about it. And because all these sports teams boycotted, went on strike, whatever you want to call it, we're all talking about it. Jim's talking to it over at the water cooler. Every sports network's talking about it. Every podcast is talking about it. Non-sports fans are talking about it. It's about raising awareness. There is, 99% of the population of North America now knows the name Jacob Blake. So the players' goal in all these leagues was to raise awareness. They have succeeded. Again, no matter what side of the argument you fall on, this worked, because all they wanted was to get the conversation going, and they have done it in a big way.
And it's a continuation of a lot of what they brought forward couple months ago, and I think it was June. Again, time just keeps melting together. I cannot assign months to it confidently, but I believe it was June. And Evander Kane and Matt Dumba spoke to that a lot. They said, like, you know, we did a lot of like listening and learning, and that doesn't stop. And here is when you can act. Like, this isn't just performative. Here's when you can stand with your, you know, your brothers in the NHL and stand shoulder to shoulder. And like, I'm not going to lie, seeing this picture of all those players standing behind, Kadri and Reeves and everyone else, it's like, these aren't, only black players or only white players or only brown players. These are NHL players who are standing with each other. And that was good to see. And
even though the NHL is the smallest of the major North American leagues, I'd argue it's the most this was the league where it was the most important to do this, because the NHL has the fewest black players by a lot out of all these sports. So you can sit here and say, how can the NBA do this? Well, a majority of their athletes are black. Of course they're pissed right now. How could the MLB and the NFL's not running, but how could they do this? A majority of their players are directly affected by the problem. Anybody with a brain can see why they'd be mad. The NHL is predominantly white. And the issue right now isn't with black people, because they're the ones this is happening to. So unless the predominantly white leagues, which I think the MLS would fall under as well, unless they jump on board, nothing happens. It's irrelevant for the most part, right? So it's good to see the Bo Horvats and the Jason Dickinsons of the world jumping to the front of this, because we know Revo and Dumba and Bellemare and Kadri would be at the front of this, again, because they're directly affected. But it was so important to see the rest of the league, the Robin Leonards, the Tyler Sagans stepping up.
Yeah. And like, I'm going to selfishly add my own perspective here. Like, I'm a person of color involved in the world of hockey, and I'm also a numb, jaded, calloused asshole. So those two things led me to the point where, I was talking to friends about this, and I was like, I don't think the NHL is going to sit out. And I had no emotional response to that. Like, I was just like, I don't think that this is the league that's going to do this. I think the NBA is going to do it. I think the MLB is going to do it. I think if the NFL was in full force right now, I think we might be looking at a couple NFL teams or the whole league, doing something. But I wasn't expecting the NHL to do it. And so, yeah, to further Brad's point, I think it's important for the NHL, based on everything that he just mentioned, to do this kind of thing. Is racism solved? God, no. No. Is even racism in hockey solved? No, not even close. Not even a little bit. But there's awareness. There's a conversation that is now ongoing, and it's brought to the forefront. And the players themselves, this is a player-run initiative, chose to utilize their platform to bring this up. It's going to be controversial. There's going to be people mad at, us, people who take a stronger stance, people who take a weaker stance. People are just going to be angry in all directions. It's important just to have the conversation, and that's what the players wanted, and that's where we are. So as that develops, I think we're still not even through, like, we said hockey is going to be back Saturday. That's not even a guarantee. Like, that hasn't been put in writing yet. Like, I think the decision to postpone yesterday or today's games and tomorrow's came like 90 minutes before we hit record on the podcast. So that's still developing. So if this is out of date by the time you're listening, we do our best to be clairvoyants, but my investment portfolio will tell you that I'm not so good at it.
It's 2020. We could have infinity more disasters by the time anything gets announced, because did everybody else see the news about the possible square dancing hurricanes approaching?
Sorry, what?
So I was reading this news report. It's unlikely to happen, but apparently it's possible. This could have been an Onion article. I didn't dive too deep, so disclaimer on that. There's two hurricanes that are kind of relatively close to each other that are coming up the one current. And I guess there's a phenomenon where if they get close to each other, they kind of like start to pull each other. So it's incredibly slow, but it would almost look like they're going around in a circle like a square dance. So, who had square dancing hurricanes on their calendar for 2020?
It's one of my friend's birthdays today, and we were on like a Zoom call with her, and we were just like laughing about how like shitty 2020 is. And she's like, I just can't help but think that 2020 is going to be better. 2021 is going to be better, right? Like, it can't get worse than this. And I was like, hey, careful. Careful with that. Can't just go throwing that out there. Yeah, I won't test 2020 anymore. I've already written off the year. We joke, we're going to screw it, like just say, forget it and put up a Christmas tree just to have any kind of semblance of happiness.
Any NHL player that wears the number 20 needs to change it immediately.
Yeah. It's actually so bad that it's gotten Evan to drink during podcasts. And you don't usually do that, Evan.
I have the past few.
Have you actually?
Yeah. Well, it's either Sunday night when I need it or Thursday night when I need it from work.
What do you need it for? A Sunday night to sleep?
No, just relaxing after 2 rounds of golf.
There it is. It was like a tough Sunday, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Back.
Yeah. Well, don't tell us about your extracurriculars, Evan. We don't need to know that. That's Patreon exclusive.
Yeah.
Before that gets too spicy. Okay. Hockey. What do we want to start with? The trade or the signing? You guys decide.
Signing. We're the Red Wings podcast.
All right, we're going to start with Red Wings specific news then, and that is going to start out with the first bit of happiness for Red Wings fans in a long time, and B, the first bit of anything impactful Red Wings roster-wise in a long time. And that is Robbie Fabbri signed a 2-year extension for an average of $2.95 million a year. So that is an RFA. He was up as an RFA, and he just signed that 2-year extension for sub $3 million cap hit. I'm going to put it out there. Thrilled.
Oh, how could you dislike this contract? Is Robbie Fabbri going to score at a near 50 to 60 point pace every year? No, of course not. His career shows that he's usually a half a point per game player, except when directly coming back from massive knee surgeries. Is he a line driver? No. But he's cheap. He comes in at roughly, what is it, 3/4 of a Darren Helm with about triple the production. Yeah. I will take that 10 out of 10 times. He is capable of filling in on a top line, can absolutely thrive on a second line, was thriving on a second line despite not having a second line center. And again, in a season, his first full season after major surgery. And the big benefit is, because I know I saw a bit of this floating around on Twitter, and it was my first thought initially when it's like, oh, less than $3 million. That's nice, but the Red Wings have infinity cap space, so does it really matter? And it's only 2 years. Well, yeah, it matters, because if they want to take on bad contracts, they need that cap space. They can't just sign Robby Fabbri for $4 million, Mantha for $8 million, Bertuzzi for $6 million, call it a day, and then all of a sudden the Canucks come up, hey, we'll give you a first-round pick for Louis if you take Louis Eriksson, and the Red Wings go, shit, we can't fit him now. So, huge. The one thing I didn't actually bother to check in on, I think we were talking about it over Messenger, but we never established. Is he for sure still an RFA at the end of this deal?
UFA, his 1 year of injury, and I had this instinct in my head, but I didn't trust my gut. But he is a UFA at the end. Cap Friendly did originally list it as an RFA, but they corrected it because his year he missed completely was a hockey related injury. It still counted as a year of service as an RFA.
Okay, so it's a prove it deal for Fabbri, because that next contract is very likely to be the biggest contract he'll ever get in his career, whether that's from Detroit or not. He's got 2 years to cash out because he'll be 26 at the time. So yeah, if he wants to sign a 5+ year contract, you got to put up 2 big years, bud. And I mean, Detroit still is in the driver's seat here. If after the first year and a half of this contract, he's still performing at his 40 to 50 point pace, Detroit's in a great position, because 26 is not a bad age to throw a reasonably long-term deal at a player. So you've got a half a season already under your belt of figuring out what Robbie Fabbri is as a Red Wing, and you've got probably another 1.5 to 2 years to figure it out. So it'll be a calculated bet on Yzerman's part, and it's a very calculated bet on Fabbri's part, because again, he can't underperform now. If he has a weak 2 seasons, I mean, he could be talking about the difference in tens of millions of dollars in career earnings.
Yeah, we're looking here at a contract that is perfect for all parties. It's Robbie Fabbri, whose career was given a big booster shot when he was able to kind of escape the grasps of playing on a Stanley Cup contending team where he couldn't break the roster because of either devastating, repeating knee injuries or just extremely strong players ahead of him. So when he came over to Detroit and produced, what he just won himself is a contract that is no longer, sub 1 million league minimum or near league minimum. And it gives him another lease to kind of prove it. And anyone you talk to who plays with this guy says, like, hey, Robbie Fabbri's driven. This is a guy who wants to succeed and is determined to prove how skilled he is. And we do see how skilled Robbie Fabbri can be. A 2-year term is a fantastic term for Steve Yzerman to be signing him to right now. If he gave Robbie Fabbri a 4-year term, I wouldn't be upset. If he gave Robbie Fabbri a 5-year term for the right price, I actually wouldn't be upset. I'm pretty confident in Robbie Fabbri's abilities. I wouldn't want, mega dollars, of course, but I think that this is a guy who, as long as he stays healthy, has some staying power at that half game or half point per game or a little bit more than that mark. But let's say you don't have the confidence I do. 2 years is perfect. It's a prove it deal. And Yzerman doesn't obliterate the cap space just because it's there. Now, I'm not going to harp on Ken Holland for RFA contracts because I think he was actually really talented at negotiating RFA contracts, and we've seen that time and time again. Larkins, Manthas, Bertuzzi's, like, those are Ken Holland. That's one of his specialties. But in general, what we've seen in the past when Detroit has had a wealth of cap space is Yzerman just throwing it at free agent, like UFAs. And it's nice to kind of get the reassurance that there's a GM here who's not going to just do that and who recognizes the importance, obviously, of keeping that cap space. Steve Yzerman is excited to try to use his cap space. Will he be able to is a different question. I mean, it's not extremely common, but then again, we're going to get to a trade later. There's almost no rules when trading in the NHL anymore. There's no rhyme or reason. I thought this was excellent. And I saw some stuff about, Robbie Fabbri. Is he actually technically worth blah, blah, blah? Okay, look, Robbie Fabbri is exciting. He is actually one of Detroit's best forwards, which is a little bit sad to say, but it's true. He's young. He produces more than nearly anyone else on the team. And it's not a gross overpayment. I actually think it's great value. I'm happy with it. I'm really thrilled.
Yes.
The thing that comes next is, so he's a UFA at the end of it, and that's fine by me. I mean, if he has 2 huge years, then he'll get paid. But Yzerman, which we've seen in Tampa Bay where guys signed and you're like, how are you signing for so cheap, is really good at negotiating UFA deals for his strong players. But how does this affect, or how does this inform your opinion of how the Mantha and Bertuzzi contracts are going to go?
Well, it's a good sign because if Yzerman's able to keep the cap hits consistently low like he did with Fabbri, it'll be a big win. I think this helps with Bertuzzi because I know it's going way back and it really doesn't matter anymore, but it's at least somewhat noteworthy that Bertuzzi and Fabbri played together in Guelph when they were in the OHL, and Fabbri was the driver of that team. Like, Bertuzzi was like number 2 or 3 on the pecking order of that team. So who knows where Fabbri would be right now had he not blown out his knee. Because at that point in their career, everybody was certain Fabbri was going to be light years ahead of Bertuzzi. So, I mean, it's good on Bertuzzi, and it's unfortunate for Fabbri that everything progressed the way it did. But this is something, Fabbri is at least somewhat of a comparable for Bertuzzi because they points per game, et cetera, track record, relatively short NHL career to this point. There are some comparables there. Obviously, Bertuzzi, a bit more of a certainty, more familiarity with the team. But this gives me hope that I don't think Bertuzzi's contract's going to go too far north of $5 million, honestly, for a supporting player, because he's a supporting player. Fabbri's a supporting player. The only difference between the two is certainty with Bertuzzi. You have a bit more of it. I'm not even going to call it certainty. We'll call it comfort level. Mantha, it's so different. I have this does nothing to sway me about what I think is going to happen with the Mantha contract, because that one's likely going to be very long term, and that one's going to be likely close to over double, if not triple, what Fabbri just signed for. So that's an entirely different stratosphere.
2 things. First, I always like to try to figure out when Evan's researching something related to what we're talking about based on his expressions. Like, he'll start like leaning forward and squinting. I'm like, oh yeah, he's definitely looking up stats right now.
I was reading a list.
Yeah. And then secondly, I think you're right in that this does inform a lot on the Bertuzzi contract. Brad, I would actually be surprised if it reached $5 million.
Yeah, I really hope it doesn't. I mean, if you talk to depends what segment of the fan base you talk to, but
there is a Bertuzzi for captain segment of the fan base, which hey, you know what? There's no captain right now, so by all means, toot whatever horn you want. But yeah, there's a lot of people who are either really high or see some fear of the Justin Abdelkader scenario in Bertuzzi. For the record, we don't think that that's what's going to happen with Bertuzzi's career trajectory. I think Bertuzzi will go shorter term, maybe not 2 years. Before the flat cap came about, I would have said Mantha definitely long term. And now I just don't know. I think Mantha might take another short-term deal to try to bet on himself once the money starts flowing back into hockey and the cap starts rising again.
So here's the difference, though. If Mantha's taking a short-term deal, it's a 1-year deal. The Red Wings are not walking him to unrestricted free agency like they are willing to do with Fabbri. They got Fabbri for essentially nothing. So as much as it would suck to just out and out lose him to free agency after the 2 years, I mean, it's not the end of the world from an asset management standpoint. Anthony Mantha cannot be walked to unrestricted free agency. If I'm Steve Yzerman, if he wants to talk short term, my number is 1. And if he doesn't want to talk short term, I'm not starting with anything shorter than a 5. So I'm going to go.
So what do you offer him if it's a 1-year deal?
We have, and again, you don't want to offer cap space, but if he wants to take $7-8 million for 1 year, Detroit's still got a lot of cap space. They'd still be able to get some bad contracts in, but I don't even think I would do that if I was Yzerman. I'm like, oh, you want another prove it deal so you can cost us more next summer? Cool, $5 million. That would be my negotiating ploy. Like, I'd be comfortable going higher than that, but what's in it for the Red Wings, right? Like, all right, we get it. You've had injuries. You want a full year to prove to us how good you are. Translation, you want a full year to up your next contract that will give you next year. Okay, but you're going to give us some savings this year, so we can take on an extra bad contract or something like that. Now, if Mantha wants to go 5, 6, 7, 8 years, okay, then you're bumping up that cap hit by $2-3 million comfortably. So, I mean, if I'm Yzerman at this point, I'm betting you're not getting Mantha cheaper than you will this summer, because if he does have another big year, that is not going to decrease his contract. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in a league where everybody's panicking because of the essential flat cap. You're not getting him cheaper than you will right now. Do not risk it. I say do not risk it. Like, the big risk here would be Mantha pops off for 90 points this year, which isn't a bad thing. But then you got to pay him as a 90-point scorer. So I'd rather pay him as a 50, 60-point scorer right now, ideally. And I'd rather pay him as a 50, 60-point scorer long term, because then if he doesn't progress and he keeps getting injured, okay, fair value. But if he does find some consistent health and he keeps producing the way he's produced, great. You've got a 70, 80-point player on a bargain.
Yeah, my thing with Mantha is I always find myself saying, like, I cannot wait till this guy has a healthy year, because I just want to see what he can do. But you look at his skill set, you look at his body of work, you look at his underlying numbers. When this guy is on the ice healthy and is on a streak, we all have said at some point Mantha might be the most skilled player on this team. More so than Larkin, more so than anyone else. If
we're just talking talent, I'll still make that argument. I'll never not make that argument.
You look at his underlying numbers, like I looked at his on-ice impact, like through Mike and McCurdy's Hockey Viz. The guy's a force. The guy is a force. He drives offense to the point where he actually contributes to team defense. Like when he's on the ice, the puck is in the offensive zone, and he has shot impact. He has offensive. He's not. I don't think there's a risk of this guy, if he can stay healthy, being an absolute terror to play against. I don't see him as being unlikely to score 40 goals in a full season. I don't see him as being, having no chance at 90 points ever. No, I think his ceiling is up there. And I think it's really high. So I agree with you. If Yzerman can sign him long term, there's a good chance he gets him at a great bargain. But just because we want him to be healthy doesn't mean he'll stay healthy.
No, we can't.
And that's the risk.
But if he doesn't stay healthy, it sucks, but you don't eat cap hit on LTIR. It sucks. It's wasted money. Maybe just make sure you insure his contract. But I mean, I don't get super worked up about injury history because you have ways around that. And the thing with Mantha, and you kind of alluded to it. So obviously Mantha doesn't have Larkin's insane intangibles where he's the most competitive person in the league. Like Larkin's a freak when it comes to that. And it's hard to compare anybody to him. But if we ignore that and we just look at them as players, their tools, their skill set and all that, does Anthony Mantha have a weakness? He's a great skater, best shot on the team. He's got incredible hands, an absolute force on the cycle, positive defensive impacts, good playmaker. He has everything you want in an NHL player. Everything.
Breaks his hands too much.
Except health.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, again, it's not like he's mega elite at some of these tools. Like he doesn't have Patrick Kane's hands. He doesn't have, Steven Stamkos' shot. Yeah, but he's in the upper tier of all these tools. Yeah. And you put that all in a 6'5" player? No, if you like it, you put a ring on it.
Remember when Toronto was trying to trade Phaneuf for Mantha?
Oh, did you see that one Montreal reporter who proposed Victor Mete and Max Domi for Mantha? Oh, you get paid to write, and that's your opinion? Have you watched a Red Wings game? Look, Mantha has torched Montreal. I know you've seen what he can do. If you think that deal is even remotely fair, if you were Montreal trying to get Anthony Mantha, your offer better start with Nick Suzuki.
I actually tweeted around the time when all these Mantha things started to come up again. Mantha is to Montreal as like Demko is to Detroit. Like fan bases fixate on certain players that they, fantasize of bringing over, and then they drum up trades which are like almost always a low ball. And that's just the way it goes. But I just cannot help but laugh at so many of the Montreal ones. Look, I'm not sleeping on Max Domi. I think Max Domi is actually kind of underappreciated.
He was playing on Montreal's fourth line for parts of the playoffs. I am not trading him for Mantha in any reality.
Yeah, there's not really there's no appreciation for Mantha around the league. And that's because, the guy can't stay healthy for too long. So I don't blame a lot of people for that. But Montreal fans Montreal is fully aware of who Mantha is as a player. And it's just so, whenever those trade offers start to float around, I think, man, this must be what people think about us when we talk about, getting Demko or this player or another.
Yeah, but we're looking at taking on garbage contracts. We're not looking at taking on a team's arguably best player. It's not like we're calling up Vancouver. Hey, that Pettersson fella looks interesting.
Yeah, what if we give you DeKaiser in 2 seconds for Pettersson? That's fine.
All right, well, we'll make it a 2021 first. It's fine.
Yeah, that's okay. Oh, man, don't let us forget about the Arizona thing.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that. Anyways, Fabbri's extension, fantastic. We're probably going to see, I don't want to say soon. You never know how these negotiations go, but before the end of the year, so within the next 4 months, we're likely going to see the Bertuzzi and Mantha deals come through, as well as the other swath of other RFAs. We're going to find out whether or not they're going to be part of the Red Wings' future. That said, other Red Wings news, Filip Zadina tearing it up in the Czech Republic. 2 goals in the first period of his first game over there.
Hell yeah.
You watch the goals and it's like Evans beer league hockey.
The goalie has one arm.
Yeah. It's like on his back. Like he took the shot and I saw the goalie set up and jump to drop. It's not the world's best hockey, but hey, it's hockey. It's happening.
Shaking off the rust.
You'd rather see him score that than not score that.
Yeah, absolutely. Swedish players, some Swedish prospects, and then, of course, Lucas Raymond, some other notable prospects have started playing. So it's good that international hockey is kicking up and we can start to get eyes on these guys. You guys have asked before, what would need to happen for Lucas Raymond to move into the top 3? And the answer there is absolutely torch all hockey until the draft. So we'll see what happens. But it was nice. The Fabbri news and the Zadina double goal, the Zadina 2-goal game came on the same day. So it was nice to have a little bit of Red Wings positivity. It was nice to have Red Wings news, but it was nice to have Red Wings positivity. So much appreciative from both, or all three, from Zadina, Yzerman, and Fabbri. It was nice. Okay. Before we get into Arizona, let's talk about the trade. It came about on Tuesday afternoon, Monday afternoon.
What
something
day
early.
is it?
It doesn't matter.
August 25th. Okay, so yeah, Tuesday afternoon. Toronto traded Kasperi Kapanen. And that's notable because, Toronto is, the hockey media is always circling Toronto, and that team needs to make changes, et cetera, et cetera. They're up against the cap. They need to make moves. What are they going to do to clear cap? They traded Kasperi Kapanen, and it came out that he was going to Pittsburgh. So immediately everyone was laughing because the other trade that Toronto made last summer was Patrick Marleau to the Hurricanes and a first, basically just to clear cap space, which is the 13th overall pick this year. So everyone was saying, oh my God, this is going to be another awful deal. Please let it be Jack Johnson coming the other way. The full deal is Kasperi Kapanen, Pontus Aberg, and Jesper Lindgren in exchange for this year's first-round pick from Pittsburgh, which they just chose to keep instead of sending to Minnesota, and that's 15th overall. Philip Hollander, Evan Rodriguez, and a guy named David Warzowski. Jim Rutherford, for why did you do this?
In the words of Team America World Police, sometimes you're the dick and sometimes you're the asshole.
Yep.
And someone posted all of Jim Rutherford's trades in the last 5 years. And outside of one trade, he was very much one end of that on all of them. He is not good at this.
Look, I don't understand Jim Rutherford. He's an enigma. Like, he makes all of these awful trades and, signs Jack Johnson to a long-term deal and is just completely off the board and then wakes up and wins another cup that year. And I get it. When you have Crosby and Malkin, that does a lot of the work for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He did not get Crosby and Malkin. He inherited Crosby and Malkin. He gets almost no credit for those cups in my mind. And it sounds bad to say, but that'd be like giving Ken Holland credit for the 98 Cup. Okay, he literally inherited a Stanley Cup championship team, and they won a Stanley Cup championship. I mean, anybody could have done that as long as you don't fire all your best players into the sun, which worse GMs have done. Hi, Mike Milbury. This is just, like, I get what Pittsburgh's doing, trading for Kasperi Kapanen, and they're in their Stanley Cup window. And they are going to be in their Stanley Cup window until Crosby and Malkin retire. And that's just reality. Kasperi Kapanen's broken 40 points in the NHL once. He's never been a point-per-game player in the NHL or the AHL. He was, again, at about a 45-ish point pace this year. Missed a couple games due to injury. Actually, not even, just under 45 points. He's a fine player. He's fast, not the highest hockey IQ. He'll chip in a couple goals. Not an elite playmaker, but also not bad at that either. He'll fit in with Crosby and Malkin just fine. Do you know, given 1 year of patience, do you know who else would have fit in just fine with Crosby or Malkin?
Tanner Pearson?
Likely who the hell ever you pick at 15. Honestly. What are you doing? Like, there's a trade for the sake of making a trade, and if the Penguins brought in Kasperi Kapanen and didn't give up their first round pick, they could have given up just about anything, and I would have been like, okay, yeah, I get it. Philip Hollander's not a bad prospect either. There's an outside chance Philip Hollander turns into Kasperi Kapanen.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like, they have very similar skill sets. Hollander was a second round pick, so it's not like he came out of nowhere.
He was like one of the Pittsburgh's, top 3 or 4 prospects as well.
Yeah, and Pontus Aberg going back the other way is not a nothing player. He's shown flashes in the NHL, but he's been on waivers multiple times. If you really like Pontus Aberg, you would have had him already. You could have just claimed him a couple times.
The 15th overall pick in this draft is just That's too hot of a commodity to be throwing around at a player who's had more below replacement level years than years playing to the top of his talent. Yes, he's young. Yeah, he might pan out. But the fact that he's had not a strong trajectory so far, even if you believe he's going to turn into who he can be, you do not pay full price for him. You do not. And if you can't get him for cheap, then you don't trade for him. You try to find another him. Because you know what Kasperi Kapanen is right now, based on how he's playing within the last year or so of hockey? Replaceable. Someone said what's worth, or it was actually Prashant who asked, what's worth more? The 15th overall pick to Toronto, the 15th overall pick or Kasperi Kapanen? And I said the 15th overall pick, just by virtue of the fact that Toronto can replace Kapanen's impact, even if the 15th overall pick turns out to be dog shit. They can just replace his impact internally. They're going to just promote Nick Robertson, and that'll probably do better for them.
And let's not forget about the key component to this for the Leafs right now, who are royally screwed, is all that Kasperi cap space that they freed up. Like,
Stop helping Toronto. Stop helping Toronto.
Why do teams help good teams? I don't get it. Like, you're Pittsburgh. You're in your cup window. Do you know what team could present a problem to you in the conference finals? Toronto. Like, I always argue against that whole in-division garbage, but you just gave a team that might pose a problem to you in the playoffs the cap space to get a right-handed defenseman that they sorely need. Like, you can't be serious. Like, value in this trade aside, as catastrophically one-sided as it was, it doesn't even make sense from a competitive standpoint. You could have got players like Kasperi Kapanen for a lot cheaper. 15th overall. Now you don't have your first round pick this year or next year. Again, I'm not betting Pittsburgh falls off a cliff next year. There's no arguing Kapanen makes them better in the short term. So they're going to be a top 10 team in the league next year. So I don't think they're super heartbroken about that. But if people thought that the wheels came off on the bus in Detroit aggressively and rapidly, the decline of the Pittsburgh Penguins when Crosby and Malkin retire is going to be written about and talked about for the next 100 years. And this is the organization that can't survive not moving without having an absolute top-of-the-line superstar. This franchise is in for a world of trouble. They better win the next 3 Stanley Cups.
What is it? They keep mortgaging futures, have drafted in the first round like once or twice in the last however many years, blah, blah, blah. Once all their superstars retire, they're going to suck and feel the pain of all their past transgressions. Yeah, it's essentially the Detroit Red Wings formula, just without, oh no, they have bad contracts too. They have some anchor contracts. Jack Johnson's not like...
Brandon Tanev.
Yep.
So, yeah, they had a first round pick last year. And then before that, it was 2014 when they took Kasperi Kapanen.
Oh, my God.
Jim Rutherford, you absolute wild child. Thank you for existing. Thank you for bringing light into my life. I appreciate you. I applaud you. I envy you. You have 3 Stanley Cups. I don't pity you. And Pittsburgh, yeah, like Brad said, you hang on to these years now. And look, if let's say Detroit didn't have the cups that they did, if you ask any team who had fewer cups than Pittsburgh has, especially since, you know, the turn of the millennium, any team would kill to be in this situation because that means they'd have 3 cups. But still, the next however many years, that's what we're living right now as Red Wings fans. It's not going to be nice. It's not going to be nice.
I still can't get over the value of this deal for Pittsburgh. Like, what are they thinking? Like, he's a 40-point scorer. Could you imagine if instead of today, us talking about Fabbri's contract extension, we're talking about we had the 15th overall pick because we just traded Fabbri to Pittsburgh. We'd be doing backflips for a month for a guy who in a points per game pace was essentially Kasperi Kapanen this year, if not a bit better. Like,
also,
it's staggering.
Despite being older, like recognizing that, Evan Rodriguez makes less money and had a better impact than Kasperi Kapanen did last year. And can play center.
What's Rodriguez's contract situation?
He's got
2
one more year
million.
at $2 million.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's great value.
Yep.
Stop.
He's my age. Like he's 20 or he's oh my God, I'm old.
Oh, God.
He'll be
Shut up.
Quarter life crisis coming in.
No, he's young. He's still 27, so like the guy's still working in his prime, and he can play center. Like he can play where you want a Kasperi Kapanen to play.
I hate that I can't just sit here and dump on Pittsburgh because I'm also upset that they held Toronto. Why do teams I hate trade with each other? It makes me sad no matter what happens.
What have we been saying? There are going to be so many teams absolutely boned by this flat cap that Detroit is going to have so many opportunities to squeeze good assets out of them. Toronto wasn't the only one, but the fact that Toronto turned around and not only got cap space, but better assets than they offloaded just makes you think, well, shit, I have no hope for anything now because there's no rhyme or reason. This is an absolute circus. This is why, look, the biggest takeaway I have, if you're a new GM or you're a budding GM or you want to be a GM or you're a GM who listens to this podcast, one of many, of course, here's the single biggest takeaway. And I think both of you have said this before. The only thing you have to do to be successful is call the bad GMs and call them constantly. And that's it. Eventually they'll mess up. And they won't get fired for a long time because hockey loves its hockey men. So guys like Chiarelli and Rutherford and people who constantly lose in these trades are going to stay in decision-making positions for too long, and you can milk them for all it's worth. Kyle Dubas overpaid to get rid of Patrick Marleau. It didn't pan out. And then not only did he get to have the loss come out in the wash, he brought back essentially almost the same pick. He brought back decent assets with it. A great prospect and a player who can make the same impact that Kapanen did now. And cap space. No. The most stupid take I've seen about this is that, Pittsburgh didn't have, they weren't expecting to have that first round pick. So giving it away was essentially,
God.
it's like they didn't lose anything. I'm like, bro, that's not.
I saw that. And
that ain't it.
So what's your excuse next draft then?
Hey, we weren't expecting to have nice things, so it's good to continue to suck.
Hey, I just won the lottery. You know what I'm going to do with this money? I'm going to set it on fire.
And hey, Brad, look at that. I bet you'll feel just fine tomorrow.
I'll be very warm all night.
All right. Arizona. So the NHL, for those of you who don't know, Arizona was in some trouble, not for the usual reasons, but essentially they got caught working out and interviewing and evaluating prospects in a manner that was deemed illegal by the NHL's rules and regulations on how you can do so with future prospects. There are specifically facilitated methods of evaluating those prospects, and you're not allowed to do things like host them for private workouts and I don't know the nitty gritty of the exact rules, but essentially is like, it's not fair. It's not a fair playing field to all the teams if you're doing this and, paying them to do it or whatever it is. And so it's a big no-no. I know you can like talk to guys and interview them and talk to agents, but you can't work them out and get them on the ice and stuff. Arizona got busted for doing this for quite a few prospects. The whole story got kind of swept under the rug because this virus came over and the world shut down. But anyhow, the NHL finally made its ruling, and I was shocked. I was really, really shocked. I can't remember who tweeted at us, but they essentially tweeted at you and I, Brad, almost the exact
months
punishment.
ago.
Yeah, months ago, and we were both like, no, that's too heavy. I don't think that'll be it. And they rocked it. I'm gonna try to find your handle. You deserve the recognition. But seriously, it was remarkable because. It was JJ Hankey. Yeah, it was JJ Hankey. This year's second round pick and next year's first round pick. That's punishment.
That's a massive. I mean,
that's a huge fine
for a team that might well be in the lottery next year. I mean, they would have been in the lottery this year if it wasn't for the wonky playoff system. I mean, it's nice because now the Red Wings have 4 second-round picks this year. Not technically, but actually, because, hey, their final second-round pick and their third-round pick, and obviously the rest of the picks get bumped up a spot, but now that third-round pick is technically pick 62. So in a normal draft,
counts.
Hey, in a normal year, that's 4 second-round picks. But yeah, and then next year's, I mean, if they want to win now, they lose trading power. If they do want to slow play this and take the assets there, well, they just lost them. I mean, John Chayka just, what a mess he left this team. Jesus.
Good time to bolt, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, what's that? Taylor's probably not re-signing. Bye.
We're getting our 2 massive draft picks taken from us. Yeah, I'm going to go work for the Pagulas in Buffalo.
Yeah, gee. Do we know where he's working yet? I thought it was in New Jersey, but I have not heard anything.
I haven't heard anything solidly.
Yeah. No. So, I mean, the NHL did not screw around on this one, and it's literally every other team's game.
I'm happy the NHL came down strong. I'm pretty proud of the way the league's handled this. I'm actually pretty proud of the beginning of this episode aside. I mean, that's still all a cloud to me at this point. From putting together this bubble and running the playoffs and handling this decision on Arizona, the league has acted decisively and in a way where I'm like, you are doing things that are actually for the betterment of the game right now. Like, they just levied such a heavy punishment that no team is going to dare do this again.
Oh, yeah, 0 chance. You'd be insane to do this. And
they finally grounded their bratty son, who's always asking for money. They finally did it.
Good for them. It must have been hard to do, too, because, like, Arizona needs help as a franchise. Like, they're always on the cusp. And the NHL didn't pull punches, and they said, like, hey, cut this shit out. Not cool. Everyone's on a level playing field here. You do not get any kind of concerted advantage. I'd be curious to know more about who ran this, whether this was a Chayka thing, whether this happened at the amateur scouting level only, whether this came from the top. I don't know. But still, good on the NHL. Sucks for Coyotes fans. It has not been a good time for them the past few weeks. And
hey, they got to play a playoff series.
Yeah, that's true. They did. They were there, so that counts. And they got to see the Kachina more than they anticipated. And pretty much from the time they saw the Kachina to now, it was all kind of downhill. They won their series, but besides that. Okay. I know we were supposed to do a prospect profile, but we are hitting the hour mark here. So do we want to push that prospect profile and find a way to squeeze it in later and just jump into overtime?
Sure. We'll double up next episode, because after that, the prospect profile formula gets shifted.
Yeah, we'll double up and also keep an eye out over the next couple days. We'll do the announcement of the card winners. I'm sorry, today got a little bit frenzied, obviously, with news happening almost as we were recording. It kind of shifts the plan down. So as Brad just alluded to, we are approaching the draft, believe it or not. We're like a month and a week away. A month and a couple weeks away. So we are going to start doing the biggest of big names. We are going to be doing pretty much all Detroit's likely draft picks in terms of who can go at number 4 and at 32. And that's going to be the heavy stuff. You're going to see a lot more deep dives in the weed stuff on that. So look forward to that, especially over the course of September and early October. And we're excited to get into it. But for now, Overtime, which on this midweek episode of the Winged Wheel podcast is Patreon exclusive. So our way of saying thank you for supporting the show. You guys are the reason why we can continue to have this show, especially during quarantine and no Red Wings hockey for a while. Your local Winged Wheel podcast patron is the reason why we can get on the air and be excited about the Fabbri extension. Okay. So we're going to start with Garrett TV, who says, Michael Jackson eating popcorn gif. Seriously, though, I want to see more from both the players in the NHL. Mind you, I think this comment was made before today's press conference, so don't hold time accuracy against any of the comments here. I'm not mad, but I thought the thoughts and prayers moments of silence don't do shit anymore. They look weak, distant, and laughably tone deaf. Be a part of the change and prove you actually believe the equality dog and pony show you put on a few weeks ago during the restart. So that's actually good that actually has come through. 70% of the players in the league are American or Canadian, and equality is a problem with both countries. But regardless, you don't have to be an American to stand up for what's right. It's uncomfortable. It should be. Change is hard. But holy frickin', do something for the future for people who don't have a voice. Well said, Garrett. And I hope today is a good start in continuing that. Kyle Sanders says, hey guys, it's been a dog's age since I commented last and I have to make up for lost ground. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Ferrari blatantly trying to run Vettel into the ground? I mean, I'm no expert, but 40 frickin' laps on soft tires isn't even a joke. I mean, Gott im Himmel, it actually hurts my brain. For those of you who don't know, Formula One is just so dramatic. I think it's shameful, and I wasn't even a huge Vettel fan before this season. Shame on them. He's their best strategist by far, and I'm excited for them to not have him anymore because that'll mean better things for him. Moving on to other things, you frequently talk about how teams like the Islanders are bringing back the dead puck era styles of play, and you make reference to the fact that the 90s Devils created it and bungled everything so bad that they had to change the rules to fix it. As an individual who's born in '01, I'm legally allowed to drink now. This has no bearing on anything. I just want you to feel old. Can you give a brief explanation on how, one, what the Devils did to do to change play? 2, how it was so effective, and 3, why should eating ass be legalized? And 4, how did the league change the rules to end the era? Sorry for the long comment. Love you all, and Brad is okay, I guess.
I mean, where to start? Okay, so the Devils. So the Devils were the first team to employ essentially the neutral zone trap, which means they didn't really send any forecheckers in. And if they did, it was only one, and it was very light, so they had a easy out. So basically, when a team was breaking out, they had to try and skate through all 5 Devils to get to the net. Needless to say, doesn't work in the NHL. You get stopped. So the Devils played severe low-event hockey. And when you're playing low-event hockey, it means you're not getting scoring chances against. And when you have a goalie of Martin Brodeur's caliber and Ken Danico and Scott Niedermayer on the blue line, you're going to do it very effectively, and you're going to have a ton of games where the opponents only score 0, 1, or 2 goals. And because at this time, not many teams, almost no teams other than the Devils were employing this strategy, it meant that the Devils would clog them and prevent them from getting chances, but the Devils themselves would still get chances. So, and they won a lot. They won a cup in 95. They were one of the top teams perpetually. They were in the finals in 2000 and 2001. They won the cup again in 03. It worked. Low event, high defense hockey works. I'm not going to argue that. It's the worst kind of hockey to watch because it's meant to be low event. And when I say low event, it means low shots. And when you get low shots, it means low scoring chances. It's kind of what Blashill was trying to do with the Red Wings, just unsuccessfully because they didn't have the talent to execute it properly. That's what happened. So the NHL had to start calling more penalties after the lockout. They had to change the rules. They had to get rid of the 2-line pass because they needed to find ways to open the game up because people went, oh my God, the Devils are winning all the time. We should do that. So it ushered in the dead puck era. And then the NHL changed all these rules to benefit the offensive teams. So teams went, oh, scoring wins again. We'll do that. And then one team would go back to the defensive style and it would work. And then copycat teams start funneling it through. And this is where we're going again. There's a reason why, what was it, 2015, Jamie Benn won the Art Ross Trophy with 87 points.
Yeah, that wasn't a good year.
No, and it was because of this garbage. So I'm not going to argue that it works, but it's why I'm rooting against the Islanders because I hope it doesn't. I don't want it to work. I want offense and skill to win out. I don't want systems and defense to win out. I want entertainment. I want Colorado. I want Tampa Bay. I want these teams built around speed and skill to win. Because those are the teams I want the rest of the NHL to copy.
And I'm going to put out a little bit of a devil's advocate argument here in that I don't find it boring to watch the Islanders right now. I'm actually having a lot of fun. But I know Brad doesn't think that.
I've watched, no hockey to me is boring. It's like obviously hyperbole and over exaggeration. Like I still watch them, but when you compare I forget what night it was. I watched the Islanders and the Avs on the same night, and it felt like I was watching two different sports. Honestly.
Yeah. Caltroit Red Flames says Fabbri returns with the same awesome picture of the otter in the water raising its hand, looking kind of surprised at good news, which is a perfect encapsulation of us. Carl Y says, hi guys, I have only one real question and one general Kara comment. You already know what's coming. One, who would you pick to be the 8 additional players if they extend the roster to be 31 players? As in like from Grand Rapids?
I mean, it's a catch-22 because those other 8 players aren't going to be playing, so I'd rather have the Joe Velenos of the world staying in Grand Rapids and playing. But let's assume there's no AHL this year, so you have to just pick 8 players because they don't have to play anywhere else. So who wasn't on the team this year? Veleno, Rasmussen, Hirose, Seider are probably the givens.
Yep. Svechnikov. Chase Pearson.
McIsaac. Like this is all on the assumption that these guys have nowhere else to play. I'd say McIsaac, Berggren.
Do we count Giovanni Smith or do we count him as already on the roster?
I'll count him as on the roster because he was already playing there. And Suomisto.
Yeah, why
Rasmussen?
not? Yeah, he said Rasmussen.
I'm sure I forgot someone important, but you guys get it.
2, I know you will have already said everything you're going to say by the time you read this comment, but please be nice and don't hurt my feelings talking about the trade. I'm going to put on a brave face and listen to all of it. Be proud of me. Sincerely, the only Dilla Rose fan left in Detroit. Well, you'll be happy to know that we didn't make fun of you even once today. This next comment is from Will I Punch Logan Couture Again? And
I forgot about that. God,
Yeah.
so many things have happened.
And yeah, stories that definitely never happened. And then the answer is just bet. Just your average Tej says, so a few questions here. I'll keep it sweet. Number 1, how does one get into F1 like I know nothing about it? Okay, Netflix, Drive to Survive. And then when you're done on our Discord channel, we have an other sports channel. There's a lot of people who will bring you up to speed. But first, the Netflix series. 2, Golf Guy. What's your best score? Yeah, what's your best score?
I think this year was a 76. So far
All right.
over.
It was a mini golf course.
I once shot 81 on the front 9. And last one's not a question, but a statement for Brad. I saw a Bills fan while visiting my parents. They looked dead in the eyes, and I immediately thought, so is Brad. Must be a Bills thing. Stay fresh cheese bags.
Oh, it is. Oh, it really, really is.
The second funniest name of today's episode is 2020 Sucks Sweaty Balls. Says, dude, I'm so over this year. No jokes this time. Let's end 2020. Screw this year. It's been fully ruined. Recommend me one funny movie since I'm so over it. Thanks, guys, and I need more weed. Ooh, what's a good funny movie?
There's lots to choose from. I'm trying to think of one that's not like super recommended.
I love The Other Guys.
This Is the End.
This Is the End was good.
That movie was fantastic.
Kings of Summer. Watch Kings of Summer. I thought Kings of Summer was hysterical.
I haven't seen that one.
Zach and Miri Make a Porno.
Also quality.
Denny OD says, hello, I have 2 things I want to vent about. 1, America sucks right now and we don't deserve to have nice things. I actually didn't watch hockey last night after the Bucks boycotted their game. It just felt dirty. I wish they would have canceled those games last night just to show some sort of pulse, but alas, the NHL does what the NHL does. 2, I found myself rooting for the Islanders this playoffs. Despite them being boring, I just realized why. The Islanders are exactly the team that Detroiters love to root for. Hardworking, gritty, no superstar. Yes, Barzal can become one. And overall, just a blue-collar type team. I think literally blue collars, the Islanders. Is it blue or are they orange?
Who cares?
It's why we like the Glendennings of the world and our fascination with the grind line. The bad boy Pistons and going to work Pistons also fit this build. I guess it's weird. It's a weird Detroit psyche that's been instilled in our minds since the early auto industry days. I think he has a great point, and I think that's why a lot of people kind of clung on to Glendenning so much, because they wanted him to be a part of that, even though to be that player specifically and only that player, you need to be part of a bigger system that fits that league's play style, which is maybe why Glendenning's been dragged through the mud. Although Glendenning still is a great impact player. Like, I love rooting for Glendenning. But just, we don't have what the grind line was. And I don't know if we can in this era. Anyways, he says, enjoy Canada and remember Black Lives Matter. Evan Pardo says, should there be a lottery for Arizona's forfeited draft picks? And why will the Wings lose if that does take place? I loved how every Red Wings fan was like, oh yeah, free picks, let's put them in a lottery. Why don't we just put them in a lottery? Maybe the Stanley Cup team should get them. No, I'm happy with no lottery because, like Brad said, moves us up.
We'll pick 6 in that lottery as well.
Yeah, somehow.
It'll somehow bump down our original picks.
Don Mitchell says, what do you guys think of the Fabbri contract? Mentioned it. Who will they sign next? My guess is Mantha. I hope so. With so many forwards, can't we trade Mantha to Montreal for their best 2C and Max Domi? Think we can get their first round pick too? What do you all think of Arizona's punishment? Playoffs, huh? Wait, you probably discussed all this stuff already. Oops, sorry for using my quarantine boredom on trolling my spotlight time. I've been rummaging through Cap Friendly a lot lately, and after hearing about that, the picks that Arizona has to forfeit, I noticed how fricked they are with their cap space as well as draft picks. According to Cap Friendly, they'll have 1.1 mil in cap space for next season, along with not having a pick until the late fourth. Very big yikes. Is there a world where Detroit trades some of their like second to middle round picks in exchange for assets from Arizona?
What assets does Arizona have that we would want? I mean, they gave up all their reasonable prospects that they would trade for Taylor Hall. I don't think they're giving up Barrett Hayton anytime soon. A lot of guys on their roster are tied down to contracts I wouldn't touch, so
they won't move Christian Dvorak.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Get Jacob Chikrin back.
Oh God, could you imagine?
He's on his contract's funny. 6 years at 4.6.
Yeah, like I would say Chikrin back in a heartbeat, but I mean back like we had him in the first place. But I don't see.
Do you take Antti Ranta or Darcy Kemper?
I mean, I would take Antti Ranta in a heartbeat.
I mean, yeah, but I don't. I would be afraid of what they would cost.
Sorry, I meant Darcy Kemper.
Either or, they're both great.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that they don't have their draft picks makes it almost like they would have to overpay. But you never know. They have a new GM, or they don't really have a new GM. Weird. Arizona's weird. Moving on. Lastly, what monetary value do you put on first round picks? Like, how much does a contract need to be worth to include a first round pick? Also, instead of moving bad contracts around and weighing teams down that way, what are your thoughts on trading cap space outright with the flat cap for the foreseeable future? I really like the idea of teams like Detroit trading a set amount of cap space away for a specific amount of years. It allows teams like Detroit to play with prospects with ELCs and not bring in players like Lucic or Eriksson to take up a roster spot. Thanks as always. Cheers, Don. I think that second point is a good way to quiet the no hard cap crowd, because it would allow teams who really had the money but were really struggling with the cap to acquire, like, to get that space. And it would give teams like Detroit, like, it's much easier to put a dollar value on a first round pick if it's like, hey, $4 million gets you a first. Here's $4 million of cap space, but you have to give us a first. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, but assigning monetary value to it, like, it's
hard.
It's relative to the team that is trading it, right? Because not every million of cap space is worth the same to some teams, right? Like St. Louis, for example, right now, they want to keep Pietrangelo. Like, every $100,000 right now to them is like life and death. Whereas a team like Toronto, even though they're up against a cap, they have all their key players on contract for next year, so they're not screwed if they don't get any. They just have to, the bottom of their lineup will suffer a little bit. So not all cap space is created equal.
Okay. Michael Barry says, hi guys, hope all is well. 3 things. 1, how weird was the Logan Couture story? Like, you call the cops if someone punches you, right? Yeah. The story read from the beginning like it wasn't true, but regardless. Weird day for Couture. Two, who is in a worse position from a franchise perspective, Arizona or the Panthers? Bobrovsky contract and healthy scratch Michael Mathewson are signed for 6 more years, but Arizona is going to be without picks for the next 2 drafts and will lose Taylor Hall. Oh, definitely Arizona.
Oh, 100%.
When you have a Huberdeau and a Barkov and, even Ekblad, even though he hasn't really panned out to what he was supposed to be, and Bobrovsky on any given year can turn it on. Like I would much rather be in the Panthers position. And 3, also, how would you feel about the Red Wings getting Phil Kessel? Sounds like Arizona isn't happy with him, although I don't know what we could get back. I'm not keen on taking on the Kessel contract unless there was a return for it, but I don't know if they'd want to move Kessel for the sake of moving him.
He also has a modified no move clause.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's coming to Detroit.
And
why would you leave Arizona to come live in Detroit?
And he's also viewed as an asset still. Teams would want him. So, which means Detroit's not getting the type of asset we would need in a trade. Detroit's not trading for the now, they're trading for the future.
Perhaps we could get Robbie Russo or Vili Sariarvi from them. They look like young budding prospects.
Yeah. I don't think anyone was really too torn up about that. But again, Robbie Russo was another one of those guys who had a lot of big fans. He was great for Grand Rapids, right? So
he had a moment in time where I thought he was going to be a power play quarterback, and then it was quickly extinguished. I remember he had a bomb from the point, but that was about it. You could say that about a few of our recent prospects.
Sproul had a big heavy shot, never did really anything for Detroit. Third man in says, hey boys, just disappointed and frustrated as many are. The NHL can't get things right. Canceling games for even one day yesterday would have been a simple act of solidarity. And as I write this, 2 hours before puck drop with the Flyers Isles game, the NHL is still dragging their heels about tonight's game in the face of Evander Kane, and the Hockey Diversity Alliance has called to cancel tonight's games. I know some people say sports and politics don't mix, but when you understand why the NHL is predominantly white and college and professional basketball and football are predominantly black, politics are already there. Update, they finally did it an hour before puck drop. Too slow, but it's a start. Joseph Fournier says, hey there, fellas. Lots to say, so I'll keep my points brief. First, imagine how a young girl feels while watching the playoffs and hearing that she'd be a distraction to the players. Firk Mike Milbury, replace him with Sarah Siv. Yeah, like I said before, there's a reason we call our segment about being angry at idiots or dumb things a Mike Milbury minute, and it's not a celebration of him. Second, all the bars in the Upper West Side carry that shitty peanut butter whiskey, and we couldn't give that shit away if it came with a censored avoid at all costs. Third, the bigger story about Logan Couture should be that he admitted he doesn't vote. Remember that Isaac Asimov quote? America has succumbed to the false notion that ignorance is just as valuable as knowledge. Yeah, he's from Guelph, but this is a prime example. He's from Guelph. Ugh.
No, he's from St. Mary's.
Is he?
Yeah, that's where he grew up.
And finally, as the U.S. is experiencing a period of heavy social unrest, sports should not be at the forefront. My one problem with the league canceling games is that they waited for the Hockey Diversity Alliance to formally ask for it. Get used to this. They will never take the initiative and will wait for the HDA to demand action from here on out, removing the onus of responsibility from the league. Stay fresh, cheese bags. Keep fighting the good fight and getting into good trouble. Chris Smith says, I never thought I'd see the day that Evander Kane did something better than knock him out cold. Good on him. If you could have a painting made like the Fleury one of any other NHL player, who would you pick and what's written on the sword? It doesn't have to be a coach. For example, Logan Couture on the sword, it reads Datsuk or Guy from Tim Hortons.
Mike Modano, and it says Mike Babcock on the sword.
You can have a lot of people. Yeah. Jason Spezza would probably have one of those as well. Toronto Maple Leafs, and on the sword it says Toronto Maple Leafs.
Toronto Maple Leafs, and on the sword it says Boston Bruins.
Oh, that's good. Steve Dangle, and it says Toronto Maple Leafs. Mitch Marner, and it says Paul Marner / Darren Dreger. There's a lot of good ones. Myself or you, Brad, and it says Evan Lobsinger.
Could be.
Coming soon.
Yeah. Whenever there's a Quiet Evan episode, I always just think, he's saving all his good words for when he kills us and just takes a podcast for his own.
The ramblings of a madman.
Evan, how long could you speak solo?
Yeah, I would have to prep a lot more than 0.
Well, I mean, don't give away all your secrets.
I could get probably 30 to an hour. I would I would have to prep significantly. I do 30-minute talking and meetings all the time. No problem, but I prep for those.
It is so devastating when you have like a day full of meetings and it happens like on the day of one of our midweek episodes, because you're like, I'm going to have like 2 hours of quiet today total. And it's just so upsetting.
You guys get quiet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We didn't buy kids.
I also work from home and can just close my door when my cat decides to be a dickhead.
We need more of the cat on this show. Where is he?
He's not allowed in here when we're recording, because as soon as he hears me talk, he just comes in and goes ham, like just screams. He does it on my work calls all the time.
Hey, that's like Brad's kids.
Yeah, literally this morning after I fed Hank and fed myself, Crystal and Mika were still sleeping. I was laying on the couch while Hank was playing around, and I just see him crawl across the room, pull himself up on the couch, stand there face to face with me, and he just looks at me, blinks like twice, and just goes, ah! And then he sat back down and went back to his toys. I've never been more confused in my life.
Hey, he is speaking for all of us. With that, we're going to end this episode of the Wound Wheel podcast. We will be back with you guys on Sunday night. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all. Again, there's been a big influx of people who have been giving us 5-star reviews on iTunes, which does a lot for getting this show some exposure. So thank you all for that. Our patrons, our name level sponsors, the septic tank of that bitch, Carol Baskins, Arjun Shanker, Greach, Jeremiah Dobo, Jake Kiefer, 2020 Sucks. What was it? Sweaty Balls, Brad Smith, Andrew Bohan, Scott Martin, Jacob Turner, Matt McKay, Brandon M, Matthew M. Rice, Luke Johnson, Kalen Wood, Hassam Al-Qassem, Charlie Elkins, Hannah Lee, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Trevor Pevavar, Alex Ott, Ashley Van Konik, Chris Frank, Connor Leighton, Matthew Keeler, Simon Anderson, Antonio Gracias, John Evans, Quaz, and Stan Olsen. Thank you all so much. Take care, and we will see you Sunday.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.